now what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the shape building tools in Adobe Illustrator. So we did a deep dive into the shape creation tools, the rectangle tool, the ellipse tool, the polygon tool, and the star tool, and how you can create actually a lot of shapes just with those 4 tools in Adobe Illustrator. That if you use the pen tool to create some of those shapes, you could not do it effectively and efficiently. So definitely take advantage of the live shape functions in Adobe Illustrator because it makes shape building so much easier. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the shape building tool of the Pathfinder panel. So in the menu, you can see that there are different types of Pathfinder tools. So to access the Pathfinder menu, all you need to go is Window down to Pathfinder. I have it already docked in my side panel here, and I like it to be docked where it's always visible so that I can easily access these functions. So there are 4 classic shape modes, which is Unite, Minus Front, Intersect, Exclude, and there are some special shape modes, which is Divide, Trim, Merge, Crop, Outline, Minus Back. We're gonna go one by one and see what each of them do. Some of them work very similar to others, like Minus Front and Minus Back. They're basically the opposite of each other. Unite, Merge, Trim, and Divide all have similar characteristics. We're going to look at those. And then the other ones, like Crop and Intersect, also have similar characteristics, but they do slightly different things. And we're going to do a deep dive into these in this class. All right, so we're over on the practice sheet of the Pathfinder menu. So we have our little pizzas here. We have a top row just with two pizzas over top of each other, and we have the middle section here with 3 pizzas. The reason why I did this is because actually, in order to see the difference between one function and another, sometimes you need more than one object to really make a clear difference because they do similar things. So the first one we're going to look at is Unite. So Unite, all it does is it merges all the shapes into one shape, and it keeps the color of the top shape. So here we have 2 shapes. We have a red circle and a yellow circle. Let's zoom in a little bit so everybody can see. You have a red circle and a yellow circle, and the red is below and the yellow on top. What if we drag over them and we click the Unite button? All right, so now you can see that the shapes merged and it took the color of the top shape. If we do that with 3, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to merge all the shapes into one complete shape, and it's going to take the color of the top shape. So the next one we're going to look at is Minus Front. All it is we have a front, or an orange circle in front or on top in the Layers panel, and we have a red circle underneath. So what will happen is it's going to remove whatever is on top. We have the red circle underneath, and we have the yellow circle on top, and we hit Minus Front. It'll keep the color of the bottom shape. Now what's going to happen if we have 3 shapes? We have a yellow shape, a red shape, and a yellow shape on top. Since the bottommost layer is the yellow, everything on top will be subtracted from that shape. So if we select them all and do Minus Front, essentially, if you have a bottom shape and you have shapes on top, every single shape that's over top of that bottom shape will be subtracted from the bottom. Subtracted from the bottom shape. So even if you have 20 different shapes, the only thing that remains is the bottom shape that is actually visible. So we're just going to come over all the way to the end to the Minus Back. Because Minus Front, Minus Back, they're pretty much the same thing, just do the opposite. So what do you think is going to happen here? So we got a red shape in the back, and we have a yellow shape in the front. Everything that's behind it will be subtracted from the top shape. So you can see the edge of this bottom shape actually goes underneath and around this shape. Essentially, it's going to cut that out because it's behind it. So let's see what happens. Let's hit the Minus Back button. And what we thought, that is correct. All right, now we have these 3 shapes here. Again, we have the front shape, That is the yellow, red, and yellow. We select them all, minus back. Bam. It left us with the frontmost shape, frontmost color. Yeah, everything that was behind it would be subtracted from it. Now let's go into intersect. Basically, where 2 points overlap each other, that is the part that's going to remain. So wherever it doesn't overlap, it'll be basically erased. So let's go up to the menu and just hit intersect. Perfect, we made a little leaf there. That's pretty good, cool. So what will happen if we have 3 objects? We have 3 pizzas here, and they all overlap at this point here in the middle. So if we hit intersect, only that point where all 3 sections, all 3 shapes overlap each other actually will remain. So it really cuts a lot off of your shapes if you use it in this way. All right, another similar function is actually the crop function. Okay, so if we're over at the crop function, I want to show you how it actually works very similarly. So intersect, we saw intersect, it left this tiny little piece here. What about the crop function? The crop, if we hit crop, wow, it looks pretty the same, but why did it keep the red and not the orange? Well, how the crop function works, it actually works like a frame. The topmost layer is the frame containing all the other shapes underneath it. It's going to remove the color of the topmost shape because it's going to just be the with which everything else actually is contained. So unlike the intersect, which actually got rid of all the other forms, the crop function actually still keeps this top form because it is the frame. If there were other shapes underneath it, anything that was within this top shape would remain. So let's see what that will do when we do this. So we have a red shape and a yellow shape. The red shape's over top of this bottom yellow shape, and this top shape will be used as the crop. So if we drag over all of it and hit crop, all shapes are now contained in the top shape and they keep their colors. Now I have 3 different shapes. I have the frame and I have these 2 other shapes. So if I wanted to separate them, I would have to ungroup them first. And now you can see that there's 3 different shapes here. We have this shape, and we have this other shape that we don't really need. But if we wanted to, we can give it a color. We can give it a red color like that. All right, so the crop, whatever shape is on top, it'll be used as a frame to block in everything that's underneath it. All right, similar to intersect, but it doesn't eliminate the top shape. It just creates sort of a frame. Just as intersect, it kept the points that overlapped each other. Exclude is the opposite. Whatever is overlapping actually will be removed from this object. So let's see how that will work. If we go up and we hit exclude, this little button here. All right, and it also took the color of the top shape. So exclude removes any points that overlap. But what happens when we have 3 shapes? So let's see what happens there. Let's hit exclude. Now that's a little different than what we had here. So why did this happen? Number 1 characteristic of the exclude and most of these functions is that it'll take the color of the top shape for the most part, except for the minus front. But exclude, you can actually build parts out of it. So let me show you just an example of what I mean. Is that if I make one circle and I copy and paste it over top of itself and make it a little smaller, I'll give it a red color, and then I'll copy the first shape over top and make it smallest. All right, so what's going to happen is I have 3 layers here. I have 3 layers here. I have the bottom layer, I have the middle layer, and I have a top layer. If I hit exclude, wherever there is 2 shapes overlapping each other, that's going to sort of eliminate themselves. But if there's a 3rd shape on top, that one will remain. From the bottom, the red will be removed, but then since the red removed from the the bottom shape, there's nothing underneath this center shape to be removed. So let's see about that. Let's go exclude. So now we made basically a target, but it's actually a target with a clear background. So if you want to make a simple target, you can use the exclude button. Basically, where there's an even number overlapping, it'll remove it. Where there is an odd number overlapping, it'll remain. Now let's go over to these three: divide, trim, and merge. They work very similarly, but different. All right, so let's see what I mean by that. All right, let's first do divide. Let's go down to the Pathfinder option, hit divide. Visibly, nothing really happened, but what we can do is we can go to right click on it and ungroup it. Now we can select each individual point from this. What it did is wherever the parts overlapped, it split it up into sections. So we have the bottom section, and we have the top section, and we have that center section. All right, so it divided itself into these three sections. Wherever a path actually crossed another path, it basically broke them apart. Now let's see what trim does. So if we hit trim, visibly it looks the same as what divide did. However, trim works a little bit differently than divide, because if we ungroup this one, now you can see that the top layer actually remained as a whole layer. The trim layer works according to what sits on top of the next thing. Whatever's on top will remove from whatever's underneath, and then vice versa. If there's something underneath this one, this will remain, the top layer will remain, and it'll cut out this section of the bottom layer. We'll see when we go into the three. Now let's see what merge does. All right, let's go merge. Now merge, we ungroup it. It looks exactly like trim. So what's the deal here? How do these two work? All right, let's go through the 3 point. Let's hit divide. Let's hit trim. And let's hit merge. Now visibly, they all look exactly the same. But if we ungroup them all, we can actually see what exactly happened. All right, divide, we can see that we can select all the points of this shape, or all the pieces of the shape, and we can separate them all. All right, so wherever the paths overlapped or the paths crossed, that's where the shape divided the other shapes, and it keeps the color that was visible when we created the divide. So since all this part was red, we can see that it's red, it'll remain red when we use this function. The same with trim and merge. Now, what happened when we use trim, it works according to layers. So we have the topmost layer, which was this circle. It cut out and it remained whole, but it cut this section from the rest of the layers. So we see this second layer, it remained mostly whole, except for the piece that was over top of it. It got removed. And now the bottom piece. So it works according to the layers. Whatever's on top will basically trim out from whatever's underneath, and it'll keep the same color. The merge shape is a little bit different now. So we divided. Now we can see that there is only 2 shapes here compared to 3 shapes in trim. The reason why that is because the merge shape works according to colors. Wherever the same color overlaps, it'll actually fuse those shapes together. So since the yellow shapes were, even though they were separated by level in the layers panel, they're the same color, so they'll merge together, and whatever is red will merge together. Sort of like the unite function, however, it works according to the colors, not just the shapes themselves. So wherever the similar color is, it'll be merged. All right, we have one last tool to look at in the Pathfinder menu. That is the outline tool, and it does exactly what it says. However, let's just see. Outline, if we hit outline, it creates an outline. If we give this stroke a weight, you can see that it basically made an outline of the shapes, and it gave it the color of the visible part. So since this section over here was visibly red, it remained as a red stroke. And same with these points, they were visibly yellow, so gave them a yellow stroke. But what also happened is it sort of worked like a divide. So now it sort of cut these sections into their own paths. So instead of using the knife tool to cut a path, you can cut it using the outline tool. If you have two paths overlapping, you can cut them and have its own path. All right, so let's see what happens when we do 3. All right, give it a stroke, a weight of some sort. So again, we can see that wherever there was a path, it changed it to a stroke or an outline, and it gave it the visible color of that area. So all these areas were red, so it gave it a stroke of red. And same with these sections here, they were all yellow, so it gave them yellow. If I ungroup it, now I have a bunch of different paths that I can work with and build from. So if you're making some monoline logo or something like that, this might be pretty useful for you to use. All right, so those are how the classic shape modes work and the Pathfinder works. What I encourage you to do is don't only use like 3 circles or 2 circles, but play around with different shapes that we built in the first couple classes and use some of these Pathfinder tools and see what you can come up with. Play around with the unite function, the minus front, exclude, divide, trim, merge, outline, and see what sort of shapes you can actually create with them, because truly there's infinite possibilities, and what would take you so long with the pen tool actually is super quick and easy with the Pathfinder tool. And also the lines will be so much crisper and cleaner than if you try to control it and make it organically with the pen tool Bezier handles. So yeah, for this class, I want you to practice, play around with the Pathfinder menu and see what you can come up with. I'll see you in the next class.